It began as a quiet diplomatic visit, nothing out of the ordinary. The Galactic Council had summoned humans to the table once again, hoping to unlock some unique insight from this peculiar species. Humans had already surprised the galaxy with their resilience, creativity, and ability to thrive in conditions that most species deemed uninhabitable. But today, the topic was less about survival and more about culture, a word that humans seemed to take immense pride in. Captain Avery Grant, Earth's appointed ambassador to the Council, stood in the vast meeting chamber of Valtherus Prime, surrounded by representatives of countless alien races. Each being present, from the towering reptilian Sculptrix to the floating ethereal Orions, had been briefed on human culture, but they found themselves baffled by the seemingly endless nuances. This time, the focus had shifted to something humanity had dubbed culinary arts. The humans requested to bring, what was it called again? Asked Supreme Overseer Talrith, a being of flowing, crystalline form, addressing the council. With his ever-resonant voice, his shimmering aura pulsed with mild skepticism. Bacon, Avery replied with a grin, her tone almost mischievous. The room fell silent, the word hanging in the air like an untranslatable enigma. To most alien species, sustenance was functional, not emotional. Nutritional pastes, energy capsules, or flavorless compounds dominated their diets. The idea of food holding deeper meaning, comfort, tradition, indulgence, was an alien concept in itself. Explain this, Bacon, Talrith continued, his curiosity barely masking his apprehension. It's a treasure of our world, Avery began, her voice carrying a note of reverence that was impossible to miss. It's simple yet transformative. A slice of something ordinary elevated to extraordinary by the process of curing, smoking, and cooking. Bacon isn't just food, it's an experience. Several representatives exchanged skeptical glances, their disbelief palpable. To them, humans often exaggerated their claims, but this reverence for food seemed absurd. You are suggesting that this bacon is a form of cultural art? A reptilian delegate hissed, his scales rippling with shades of doubt. Not just art, Avery replied, leaning forward slightly as if to draw them in. It's a symbol of our ingenuity, our connection to food, and how we've turned something so basic into something cherished. And if you're open to it, I'd like to share this treasure with all of you. The murmurs in the chamber grew louder. The Orion's glowing forms pulsed in shades of pale doubt, while the Sculptrix emitted low, guttural vibrations indicating their unease. The concept of treasure was one they all understood, but associating it with food? Unfathomable. A voice broke through the cacophony. This is ridiculous, boomed Zyrak, a hulking representative of the Crovolons, a warlike species known for their pragmatism. Humans amuse us with their eccentricities, but this? Bacon? How can something as trivial as food hold such value? Avery didn't flinch under his gaze. Instead, she smiled. It's not about the food itself, Zyrak. It's about what it represents: pleasure, ingenuity, and the ability to turn the ordinary into something unforgettable. Trust me, once you experience it, you'll understand. Zyrak's snort echoed through the chamber, but others seemed intrigued. Talrith raised a shimmering limb. Very well, Ambassador Grant. We will allow this demonstration. But no, if this bacon fails to impress, it will reflect poorly on your species. Avery nodded, her confidence unwavering. Prepare to be amazed. As the room buzzed with a mixture of doubt and curiosity, Avery's assistant, Noah, entered, carrying a sealed container. Inside was Earth's prized creation, carefully prepared to showcase its full potential. The chamber's air filtration system kicked in, sensing the foreign material, but Avery quickly deactivated it. The moment the lid opened, an aroma filled the room, a warm, smoky, savory scent that seemed to weave its way into every corner of the vast chamber. Conversations halted. The Sculptrix froze mid-motion, their forked tongues flickering in confusion. The Orion's glow shifted to a pulsating golden hue, indicating curiosity. Even the skeptical Zyrak narrowed his eyes, his nostrils flaring slightly. What is this? Talritha's voice wavered, his crystalline body glowing faintly. That Avery said, her voice triumphant, is the first step to understanding. Noah carefully placed the slices on a portable heating device, their sizzle breaking the silence. The sound seemed to mesmerize the room, a symphony of anticipation. Alien eyes of every shape and color fixated on the process as the fat rendered, and glistened, releasing even more of its intoxicating aroma. Zyrak leaned forward despite himself, his earlier scorn replaced with reluctant interest. The delicate sizzling sound grew louder, punctuated by the occasional crackle. A few representatives twitched, their sensory organs overwhelmed by the unfamiliar, yet tantalizing stimulus. Avery looked at them, her expression calm but knowing. This is just the beginning. As the scent deepened, filling the room with an undeniable richness, something unexpected happened. One by one, the delegates' reactions shifted. The Sculptrix, who prided themselves on their stoicism, began to emit low, rumbling growls that Avery recognized as approval. The Orions, known for their aloofness, edged closer, their golden glow intensifying. Even Zyrak, the ever-skeptical Crovelin, seemed unable to tear his gaze from the sizzling strips. The first slice was ready. Avery lifted it carefully, the golden-brown piece glistening under the chamber's lights. She turned to Talrith. Would you care to try? The crystalline being hesitated, his shimmering limbs flickering with uncertainty. If this is as significant as you claim, then I will be the first. With that, he extended a limb and grasped the slice delicately. All eyes watched as he brought it closer to what passed for his sensory apparatus. The moment it touched his crystalline form, a soft, resonant hum echoed from within him, a sound none had heard from a being of his kind before. Talrith froze, his glow shifting rapidly through a spectrum of colors. The room held its collective breath as they waited for his verdict. Then, in a voice tinged with awe, he spoke. This bacon is extraordinary. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives clamored to try it for themselves, their skepticism replaced by a fervent curiosity. Even Zyrak, though maintaining a facade of indifference, stepped forward, his imposing figure casting a shadow over the sizzling strips. But as Avery watched the scene unfold, a faint unease crept into her mind. Sharing bacon was one thing, but she hadn't anticipated just how strongly it would affect the aliens. The Sculptrix were growling louder, their hunger almost predatory. The Orion's glow became blinding, their movements erratic. And Zyrak, his eyes burned with an intensity that made her stomach tighten. Noah leaned in, his voice low. Do you think we've overdone it? Avery didn't answer, her gaze fixed on Zyrak as he reached for a piece. For a brief moment, she wondered if introducing bacon to the galaxy was a mistake. And then Zyrak took his first bite. Zyrak bit into the bacon, his sharp teeth slicing through the crisp, glistening strip with ease. The texture caught him off guard, a perfect balance of crunch and tenderness, and then the flavor hit. His eyes, normally cold and calculating, widened in an expression of unrestrained shock. For a moment, the fierce Crovelin warrior was silent, his hulking frame frozen as he processed what could only be described as an explosion of sensations. The smoky richness, the salty tang, the faint sweetness, all of it collided in a way he had never experienced before. Zyrak let out a deep, rumbling noise, almost like a growl, but it wasn't one of anger. It was something new. The other delegates watched in stunned silence as the mighty Crovelin closed his eyes, savoring every second of this strange and utterly alien taste. When he finally swallowed, Zyrak turned his gaze to Avery, his usual stern demeanor cracked by an expression that was almost vulnerable. How? He demanded, his voice quieter than anyone had ever heard it. How can something so small hold such power? It's the process, Avery replied, meeting his gaze with calm confidence. Humans have spent centuries perfecting the art of flavor. Bacon is more than just food. It's a testament to our creativity, our determination to make the mundane extraordinary. It's a glimpse into what drives us. Zyrak stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without another word, he reached for another piece. The scene around the room became more chaotic by the second. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy were clamoring for their turn, their skepticism washed away by the irresistible aroma. The Sculptrix representatives, who had never shown interest in anything beyond raw sustenance, were now huddled around the sizzling platter, their reptilian forms practically vibrating with anticipation. The Orions, their luminous bodies pulsing erratically, floated closer, their glowing tendrils reaching out as if trying to grasp the scent itself. Avery couldn't help but feel a mixture of pride and unease. She had expected curiosity, maybe even mild interest, but this was something else entirely. The way the aliens were reacting wasn't just about fascination. It was almost primal. Their carefully maintained composure, the rigid decorum of the Galactic Council, was unraveling before her eyes. And it wasn't just the bacon. It was what it represented. A doorway into a part of humanity they had never considered. Noah leaned in closer, his voice low. "They're losing it, Avery. I've never seen them like this." "Neither have I," she admitted, her brow furrowing. "I thought they'd be curious, maybe impressed. But it's like they're addicted already. Should we stop?" he asked, glancing nervously at the Sculptrix delegates, who were now hissing at one another over the remaining pieces on the platter. Avery hesitated. Stopping now might only make things worse. The aliens were already on edge, their reactions unpredictable. Cutting them off could spark outrage, or worse. "No," she said finally, her voice steady. "We keep going. If we back down now, they'll think we're hiding something." Noah nodded, though his unease was clear. He turned back to the heating device, carefully preparing another batch. As the fresh strips began to sizzle, the room fell into an almost eerie silence. Every alien eye was fixed on the skillet, their collective attention so intense it was almost oppressive. The smell grew stronger, richer, wrapping around them like an invisible force. It was then that Avery noticed something strange. Talrith, the crystalline overseer, was no longer glowing in his usual steady rhythm. Instead, his body pulsed with an erratic, almost frantic energy. The Orion's golden hues were shifting too quickly, their movements jittery. Even Zyrak, who had been so composed moments ago, was gripping the edge of the table with a force that made the metal groan under his hands. Avery's stomach twisted. This wasn't normal. Whatever was happening to them, it wasn't just about the taste. There was something deeper at play. "Ambassador Grant," Talrith's voice broke the tension, though it carried an edge that hadn't been there before. "You have succeeded in capturing our attention. This bacon is unlike anything we have encountered. But I must ask, what is it made of?" The question hung in the air, and Avery felt the weight of every gaze in the room turn to her. She had known this moment would come, but now that it was here, the implications felt heavier than she had anticipated. "It's derived from a creature native to Earth," she began carefully, her tone measured. "A domesticated animal known as a pig. The process involves curing and smoking its meat to enhance the flavor." The reaction was immediate. A ripple of shock and confusion spread through the room, followed by a low murmur of voices. Many alien species had evolved beyond the need for meat consumption, relying instead on synthetic alternatives. The idea of consuming another creature was foreign to them, barbaric, even. "You consume the flesh of other beings?" one of the Orions asked, their voice trembling. "Not all humans do," Avery replied quickly. "But for those who do, it's part of our history, our survival. And over time, it became something more, an art, a tradition. It's not about cruelty, it's about connection, respect for the resources that sustain us." The room fell silent again, but this time, the tension was different. The initial awe and curiosity had been replaced by something heavier, more uncertain. Avery could see the conflict in their faces, the way they wrestled with their own beliefs, and the undeniable allure of what they had just experienced. Zyrak was the first to break the silence. "We Crovolons hunt to survive," he said, his deep voice cutting through the stillness. "It is a matter of strength and skill. But this, your bacon, it is different. It is not born of necessity. It is born of indulgence." There was no accusation in his tone, only a kind of grudging respect. Avery nodded. "You're right. It's not something we need to survive, but it's something that makes life richer. It's a reminder of what we're capable of, not just surviving, but thriving, finding joy in the simplest things. The words seemed to resonate with some of the delegates, but others remained wary. Talritha's crystalline form flickered, his voice filled with a quiet intensity. Your species continues to surprise us, Ambassador Grant. You find treasure where others see none. But I must warn you, what you have introduced here today has the potential to disrupt more than you realize. Avery felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean? Talritha's glow dimmed, his voice dropping to a near whisper. You have shown us a glimpse of your world, your way of life. But such revelations come with consequences. Desire can be a dangerous thing, Ambassador. And what we desire, we do not easily forget. Before Avery could respond, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. One of the Sculptrix delegates had lunged at the table, knocking over several dishes in a desperate attempt to grab the last piece of bacon. The room erupted into chaos as others surged forward, their decorum shattered. Avery's heart pounded as she watched the scene unfold. What had started as a simple demonstration was spiraling out of control. She glanced at Noah, who was frantically trying to calm the crowd, but it was no use. The aliens were consumed by something deeper than curiosity, a hunger they didn't understand. As the chaos reached a fever pitch, Avery realized the truth. This wasn't just about bacon. It was about humanity itself, about the power of their creations, their ability to provoke emotions and desires that other species couldn't ignore. And for the first time, she wondered if they had crossed a line they couldn't come back from.